sure how to even start this video because even though I stopped attending school at the end of 2017 and officially withdrew at the beginning of 2018, this has been a persisting source of trauma and I still get nightmares about it to this day. But I think my experiences aren't unique at all, and in fact, I think that many art schools all over the world have similar issues. It shouldn't be normal for teachers to be able to publicly humiliate and berate students. It shouldn't be normal for teachers to swear and call students names. It shouldn't be normal for teachers to rip up a student's hard work, and yet we hear about it all the time. It also shouldn't be normal for students to bully one another in an intentional attempt to socially exclude and then force someone out of the school entirely. It shouldn't be normal for a student to no longer want to live anymore after taking the course because of how badly they were treated. So here's my own story that I like to share. I won't be naming names in case anyone tries to come after me legally, but you're more than welcome to DM me privately on Twitter if you'd like to know more of the details. I can't guarantee that I'll be able to answer though. I started attending my animation course in college when I was 17, and at first it was a dream come true. I had all these visions about finally being able to properly chase my dreams, of telling stories through my artwork, but some cracks started to show the longer I studied there. The fact that I was also living with undiagnosed autism also explained a lot of things and definitely didn't help my situation, but I won't go too much into that. Not today, at least. I think one of the problems was with how small the school was. Usually when you think of a college or university, you think that everyone chooses their own classes, has their own schedules and whatnot, but that wasn't the case for my school. Our year was split into only 2 classes, each with about 15 students, and everyone in the class had pretty much the same schedule, so we were together 24/7 from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day, sometimes even until 12 a.m. if we stayed after school to work. Because of this, both students and teachers spent pretty much all of our time together, and when you're in such close proximity all the time, drama is inevitable. The problem was that sometimes our teachers would join in on the gossip. Eventually, I started to feel like we were being pitted against each other in some way. Of course, sharing work with everyone for feedback is important, but sometimes they laugh, or sometimes they call our work shit, and even when students weren't around, the teachers would talk shit about them behind their backs. And if you ever tried to confront them about anything, they would have no issue with blatantly lying in order to save their own face, sometimes even pretending that we were the ones misremembering. Students would come to class with fevers because no one could afford to miss a lesson, but falling sick was treated as almost a sort of achievement, like you suffered so much for your work. I remember being so stressed and afraid of falling behind that I'd be still planning out my next assignments while in bed and falling asleep so that I wouldn't waste my time. They drilled it into our heads that we should be drawing every day, and that if we weren't working, we were being lazy. I will never forget the time a friend of mine, at the time, said to me when I confided in them about my depression and when I said I didn't even want to make art anymore. For anyone who knows me, this is basically unthinkable. I can't live without making any kind of art. It's like a part of me the same way my blood and bones are also a part of me. But at this stage, I didn't care, even though it was almost like losing an organ. I wanted to quit, and this was all within 1 year of being at this school. But this friend said that it wasn't an excuse to not draw. They said that they were depressed too, but they could still draw, and that I had to be smart about my depression. In fact, they were angry at me that I was even saying such things. And I think that was a good indicator of the mindset that the school drilled into us. Because then, I injured my hand. It was an RSI, repetitive strain injury, and I pretty much could not draw at all for the rest of the semester. It was horrible. I felt so useless, going to class and just sitting there like some kind of pathetic loser, and even though the teachers gave me extensions, I couldn't help but feel that it was begrudging from their end. I remember them coming up to me and being like, "Well, what now?" As if it was my fault that I injured myself and that it was my fault that I couldn't finish my work. And that's the thing. Every single time that they mistreat us, they say it's like that in the industry, as if it's a valid excuse. I mean, the animation industry is notorious for taking advantage of artists. Why are you promoting that sort of exploitation? Why are you teaching students about how little they are worth? Pardon me for being so presumptuous, but I feel that a lot of the teachers who treated us like this have no other way of feeling superior. Once you take them out of a school setting, they are just another underpaid and overworked artist, just like us. I briefly stepped out of school for some time while I was recovering from my injury, and that led to some social isolation. I have no doubt that my classmates are gossiping about me behind my back, because that's exactly what happened. To preface, Facebook is used a lot in Southeast Asia, so all of us, teachers and classmates included, had each other added as friends and were part of the same Facebook group for announcements and such. Knowing this, my classmates made a post accusing me of plagiarism. Thanks to my autism, I didn't even realize they were accusing me at first. I thought they were doing the opposite, and in a move that in hindsight is pretty hilarious, I was like, oh no, it's just a similar concept, and they immediately thought I was belittling them, to which it confused back and forth ensued until I was like, wait, are you accusing me of copying? And then they got defensive and offended that I was accusing them of accusing me of copying, and yeah, it was a whole mess. But they did this knowing that by making a scene, the teachers would all see. The other classmates would all see. And I never felt more alone because not a single person from my own class tried to stand up for me in this situation. Instead, several people who I thought were my friends piled on to join in on the accusations, to which I did my best to handle as graciously as possible. However, it got to the point that I found out this wasn't the only thing that they were accusing me of. I'd worked on a project outside of school with my fellow classmates, only to find out that people have been claiming that I stole their work, didn't give them credit. However, I easily disproved it by simply showing the page of credits that I'd actually included and explain that for my part I've done basically everything for that specific portion of the project. Of course, my classmates messaged me asking me to take the post down because it made them look bad. These people spread rumors about me to the point that even years after I left school, even up until last year, people were still telling each other about these same rumors. The art community here is so small that there's a lot of crossover into the anime community as well, which makes my job in AnimeCon boothing and VTubing difficult, especially knowing that there isn't really anything I can do about it. Because as I've come to realize, people will sooner believe rumors than, well, me. Eventually, the head of my course, who is another red flag all by himself, who has blocked people for calling him out about some very white colonialist takes, but anyways, he had to get them to stop. But it didn't really stop, because this group of bullies got along great with arguably the course's biggest bully, one of our lecturers who was notorious for doing things like stealing students' food, swearing at them in the middle of class, and I will never forgive him for shit-talking one of my mentally ill friends and calling her crazy in another language while right in front of her, not knowing that she could understand. He treated me really well before I started showing signs of my mental illness, which wasn't even that much. I was just more withdrawn and quiet than usual at school. Eventually, he tried to get me banned from the school's art festival, citing something along the lines of wanting to avoid potential trouble between me and the other students, which we all know is BS because I wasn't the one trying to slander others. I'm just trying to exist peacefully. Thankfully, his request was ignored, but I remember my friend telling me later that he had actually busted in the classroom one day going, "Guess who signed up for the illustration festival?" and started laughing. Hi, I'm editing, and I just remembered that he was the same person who said to everyone else while I wasn't there, maybe if everyone in the class has a problem with someone, then that person is the problem. Of course, talking about me. Anyways, Some other things the students would mock me for included my way of dressing, at one point calling me slutty behind my back for simply wearing a tank top. It went with my hari, which I put in my bag because I live in a tropical country and it's hot. They also managed to find a webtoon that I had made at the time and made fun of it by naming their own project and presenting it specifically so that they could make it a joke. I eventually deleted the whole thing, and I don't intend on showing it anymore. This same group of students would sit in the back of class, imitating another student's Jamaican accent, scroll through Instagram, and make fun of bimbos wearing too much makeup, make homophobic remarks, and once I'd officially withdrawn, they switched their target to another student, where they'd go through and open all of her project files in the computer lab and leave it for her to find in the morning. As mentioned before, students and teachers were quite close, and we'd sometimes hang out together after class hours. However, when I got particularly close to one of the lecturers, another teacher started to egg us on, even going as far as to ship the two of us together, making a comment on a Facebook post that the two of us were talking together in. In fact, it was a running joke across all the students, and I feel like an idiot for not recognizing that they weren't doing it out of lighthearted fun. To be honest, I genuinely believe my main bully was jealous of the attention I got since we were close, and specifically targeted me because of it. Later on, that same teacher who tried shipping us proceeded to tell him off for overstepping boundaries, which is just, yeah. Also they kind of sucked at drawing, so maybe that was another reason. Even among my own friends in my grade, I still felt like an outcast. One classmate in particular literally would pretend I didn't exist. Anytime I tried to speak to her, she wouldn't even bother looking at me, refusing to make eye contact and focusing on another person in the conversation like I wasn't there at all. I brushed it off, but in hindsight I should have realized there was something wrong with the way everyone else was totally cool with it. In fact, I vividly remember the time we headed to a seminar and one of them said they sent a message in our group chat. The others acknowledged they received it, but that message never showed up for me, so I'm pretty sure that they had an entire group chat without me too. Hi, I'm editing again. But I'd just like to acknowledge the fact that, at that time, I was also definitely a bit more of a hard ass about things like social justice, so I definitely could have come off as rather strong, but the problem is that none of them actually talked to me about it, and when all this stuff happened, people I thought were my friends essentially said that it was my fault for bringing it on myself. Yeah. Everything I spoke about here, I already reported to the staff, but nothing was done beyond giving the offenders a slap on the wrist, basically telling them to leave me alone, and that's it. I remember seeing their smiling photos when they happily graduated without me. I don't speak to them anymore. Why do we have to prove our passion and love for something by enduring abuse? Why is it that the ones who break under the pressure are the ones criticized, not the ones who are in positions of power taking advantage of us? Why is it acceptable to try and sabotage one another and socially isolate one another without a single consequence? I still haven't recovered from what happened, and I don't think I ever will. School has been a nightmare ever since I was little, and I don't see myself ever stepping foot in a classroom ever again. However, I won't let this experience taint my love for learning and the curiosity of the world around me. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. There is nothing else for me to say. See you.